Welcome to my presentation on interpersonal communications. I want to begin with my overarching goal. I want to be able to experience a sense of purpose and belonging in a community that values spirituality and serving the Lord with all of our heart, mind, and soul. I have learned from the beginning of our course about the importance of our identity. And I've learned that our identity is fluid. It can be elusive, as one author put it. In fact, it can be subject to alteration as the consciousness that recalls it. That is a quote from Virginia Woolf, who lived in the early 1900s. And the sociologist Durkheim, many years ago, did a study on teenagers who had committed suicide. And he found in his study, after he did his study, that the young people were not able to face the challenges of life because they did not feel a part of a social network, or in a word, a community. So we're experiencing, I believe, the very same thing today, and we're living in a very difficult time, especially when it comes to finding meaning and purpose, because there's more activity going on in communication than we have ever seen before. But the communication is lacking in quality, not in quantity. So this is something that must be addressed in the helping profession fields. I'm going to talk now about shaping of behavioral blends. The personality profile results of mine came up that I was a high C, meaning that I want to do one thing at a time, that I am more passive and task-oriented in public, and I respond best when I am not intimidated and when I'm allowed to work at my own pace. Now, this has to do with how I view other people and their opinions of me. This is how I should be in front of other people. Now, how I should be in private is different. In private, the code is a CIS, meaning Competent Influencing Specialist. And those with this blend like to work at one task, they want to do it right, and they want to feel good about what they do, and in that way impress others with how well they've done their work. Now, to deal with the negative aspects of this behavioral blend, Carbonell and Pons have said that we need to avoid bitterness, resentment, and judging, because if other people may not do things as well as we would like them to do, also to be thankful for everything, to not be so intense, pessimistic or negative. The shaping of these behavioral blends come over time, and we can develop a filter of past negative experiences that influence our conversations with other people. For example, someone may trigger a hot button by something, a word or a phrase in their conversation that may trigger a negative memory of mine. And what would happen with me is a wall of defense will go up, and I will not be able to listen to that person objectively, but instead I will be dealing internally with the negative memory that was triggered. Now, the outcome of these behavioral blends is hurtful experiences can cause withdrawal, which has happened to me in various times. But in order to turn this into something positive, I've learned that to have more empathy for people who are hurting, to use my high sensitivity towards verbal and nonverbal communication to comfort, counsel, and encourage others. We're going to move now into active listening, and we'll begin with the talker. And Peterson uses a biological description of the talker, and begins with stomach talk. Now, this relates to the listener. If the listener is hearing something from the talker that brings up a negative memory, then they're going to feel this terrible feeling in the pit of their stomach, and that's what Peterson calls stomach talk. So as a listener, it is my responsibility to not respond impulsively to what the person said, but to share with the person our feelings in a way that is non-combative. Then he talks about head talk, and that is a language that puts our thoughts into words, and that helps to nurture our interpersonal relationships. Then he goes on to heart talk, which means that we put openness and ownership into our words. So with these three parts of our being, Peterson believes that this is going to achieve a balanced communication, and that all three of these must be in effect, be a part of our communication in some form if we are going to have a healthy communication with other people. Now we're going to go on to the listener, and the listener is responsible for providing safety for the one that is going to be sharing with them his or her very personal experiences, and you want them to be able to feel safe and to trust you when that time comes for a conversation. As a listener, we must also project and understand what that person is saying. I must be able to understand what the person is saying from their perspective, not through my filter, but from what is happening in their life from their perspective and experience. And next I need to clarify, to help the talker clarify what they're talking and feeling, and also encourage talkers to fine-tune their thoughts with the goal of empowering them to move towards decisions. We're going to talk now about internal pollution, and that would be unexamined thought processes, experiencing learned helplessness, and to combat that, there is a cycle of awareness to change our thought processes that is talked about by Burley and Allen. In my case, I needed that cycle of awareness to deal with the learned helplessness. Briefly, learned helplessness is feeling that nothing that you do will be successful because other people will cause something to happen to stop what you're trying to do, so you just give up and figure what's the use in doing it. Next, there's external pollution, and examples of this are time pressures, deadlines, and taking on more tasks than one can handle. And believe me, those two examples are exactly what I have to deal with in life, and this course is helping me to learn how to balance these things so that I can not be confined to this particular flaw, I would call, or defect, where I'm allowing external distractions to stop me from achieving my goals. I want to focus next on dialectical behavior therapy skills. What I'm going to be using is mindfulness, which is taking a non-judgmental stance towards what is happening in my thinking processes and my emotions. I'm to focus on one thing in the moment and do what is effective to help me distract from what is happening right at that moment. Next, we'll deal with interpersonal effectiveness skills. Describe what I'm reacting to. Assert myself by asking the person to clarify what they're hearing me say. And in that way, it'll reinforce in a positive way how important it is to clarify what we're trying to say. And lastly are the distress tolerance skills. Radical acceptance, improving the moment, and cultivating a willing response to each moment. These are very important, and I can say from experience that I have used them and they've been successful, and it has been a very positive experience. And so these are the things that I'm going to focus on as I conclude this course of interpersonal communication.